Welcome back to the Holy Discussion. Make sure you hit subscribe, like this episode, share it with your friends, and turn on those notifications by ringing that bell icon so you never miss a deep dive. Today, we're exploring a story you sent us, one man's incredible journey through addiction and redemption and the unexpected blessings that emerged along the way.
Wow.
Get this. We're talking about a guy who went from corporate success to a prison cell, experienced what he believes was a divine intervention that led him to a house and found freedom in a way no one could have predicted. It's a story packed with twists and turns. So are you ready to dive in?
Absolutely. And what I find particularly compelling about this story is how it challenges our assumptions about success, failure, and the paths we take in life. Here's a man who seemingly had it all, a thriving career, a comfortable lifestyle, yet beneath the surface, he was battling a secret addiction that threatened to unravel everything. It really highlights how external achievements don't always reflect what's happening internally.
Right. It's a classic case of appearances being deceiving. Right. And what's even more striking is how his journey takes this dramatic turn when a SWAT team raid lands him in jail. It's like his world implodes, and he's forced to confront the consequences of his choices in the harshest way possible. A 15-year prison sentence. Talk about a wake-up call. You have to wonder what goes through someone's mind in that moment.
Well, research on the psychological effects of incarceration suggests that such a drastic shift in circumstances can trigger a range of emotions: shock, fear, anger, and even a sense of relief that the charade is finally over. It's a forced separation from the familiar routine support systems and often the substances that fuel addiction. In a sense, prison becomes a crucible, a place where old patterns are broken down and the potential for transformation emerges.
It's fascinating to think about prison as a catalyst for change, though it's certainly not an experience anyone would wish for. And in this man's case, it's in prison that we see these unexpected glimmers of light begin to emerge. He starts sewing, tutoring other inmates, even leading prayer groups. It's like he's discovering hidden talents and a sense of purpose in the most unlikely of places. I mean, who would have thought sewing would become a source of solace in prison?
That's what strikes me here, the unexpected nature of his transformation. It wasn't a sudden dramatic conversion experience, but a gradual unfolding of inner resources and a yearning for something more. The fact that he found comfort and meaning in activities like sewing and helping others speaks volumes about his capacity for empathy, resilience, and the inherent human desire to connect and contribute even in the most challenging of circumstances.
Right. It challenges our preconceived notions of what rehabilitation can look like, right?
Yeah.
It's not always about punishment, but about finding those sparks of humanity and potential that might have been dormant or overshadowed by addiction. And what's even more remarkable is that after only 10 months, he's called back for a judicial review, and the judge suspends the remainder of his sentence, acknowledging his positive contributions while incarcerated. He's going home. It's a twist no one saw coming.
That's where things get really interesting. While this early release might seem like a blessing, research on recidivism rates shows that reintegrating into society after prison is incredibly challenging. The stigma attached to a felony conviction, coupled with the psychological and emotional scars of incarceration, can create significant barriers to employment, housing, and social support.
Oh, wow. So even though he's been given this second chance, the road ahead is far from easy.
Exactly, and that's precisely what we see unfold in his story. He tries to re-enter the workforce, but his felony record becomes a major obstacle. Imagine the frustration, the sense of injustice, the weight of that past constantly holding him back. He ends up raising his son while battling a rekindled addiction. A stark reminder that even with a fresh start, the pull of addiction can be incredibly strong.
It's heartbreaking to see him struggling again, especially with the added responsibility of being a father. It highlights the cyclical nature of addiction and how even positive changes in one's life don't guarantee lasting recovery. It's a constant battle, and the stakes are even higher when a child's well-being is involved.
Absolutely, and this is where the concept of divine intervention comes into play. He describes having this vivid vision that leads him to purchase a specific house, a house he didn't even particularly like at first. He felt drawn to it, compelled to buy it, despite the financial and logistical hurdles.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. Divine intervention. It's a term that can mean different things to different people. What does he mean by this? Was it a sudden flash of insight, a feeling of guidance, or a series of events that seemed orchestrated by a higher power?
Well, from a psychological perspective, we could interpret this as a form of intuition or a subconscious nudge towards a path that aligned with his deeper needs and desires. Perhaps the vision represented a symbolic break from his past, a commitment to creating a new and healthier environment for himself and his son.
It's like he's surrendering to something beyond his conscious control, taking a leap of faith. And it's this decision, this seemingly impulsive purchase of a house, that sets in motion a chain of events that ultimately lead him towards a more fulfilling life.
Now keep in mind, this doesn't mean everything becomes easy from this point forward. In fact, he loses his corporate job yet again. But this time, it's almost as if the universe is nudging him towards a different path. Remember those sewing skills he learned in prison? Well, he turns to upholstery as a means to provide for his son. It's like those seemingly random events from his past are suddenly weaving together to create a new path forward.
Wow. It's incredible how something he learned in prison in the midst of such darkness becomes this unexpected lifeline. It speaks to the idea that our experiences, even the most challenging ones, can shape us in ways we don't always realize at the time. They can become valuable tools, hidden strengths that emerge when we least expect it.
It's a powerful reminder that what might seem like setbacks or detours can actually be essential parts of our journey.
I love that perspective. It's about trusting that there's a bigger picture unfolding even when we can't see it in the moment. But hold on a second, we're just getting to the good part. He's building this upholstery business, things are starting to look up. But then his addiction rears its ugly head again. He even brings in a guy to help him, knowing this guy is also a meth user. It's like he's sabotaging himself, making choices that seem to contradict his desire for a better life.
This is a classic illustration of the power addiction holds over our decision-making. It can distort our thinking, hijack our reward system, and lead us to prioritize immediate gratification over long-term well-being. Even when we consciously desire change, the grip of addiction can be incredibly strong, pulling us back into familiar patterns and relationships that ultimately harm us.
And in this case, the consequences are devastating. He ends up losing custody of his son because of his escalating addiction. It's a wake-up call, a realization that his choices are not only impacting his own life, but also causing immense pain to those he loves most. He describes this period as one of the lowest points in his life, filled with despair and regret.
The loss of a child, especially under these circumstances, is an unimaginable pain. It underscores the ripple effects of addiction, how it can fracture families and leave lasting wounds on everyone involved. And yet, even in this moment of profound loss, there's a glimmer of hope. He makes another attempt at sobriety this time, choosing to isolate himself, trying to break free from the triggers and temptations that led him astray.
It's a lonely and difficult path, but it speaks to his determination to change.
Exactly, and it's in this period of isolation that he stumbles upon an unexpected source of comfort and inspiration: YouTube. He starts watching faith-based content drawn to the stories of hope, redemption, and the sense of community it provides.
So even in his isolation, he's finding connection and a sense of belonging through this online community. It's fascinating how technology can play such a role in recovery, providing access to support and resources that might not be readily available otherwise.
It speaks to the power of storytelling and the human need for connection. Even in the digital age, we crave shared experiences, a sense of belonging, and the reassurance that we're not alone in our struggles.
And this is where the story takes another unexpected turn, one that I have to admit made me laugh out loud when I first heard it. Remember that faith conference he bought a ticket for while trying to get clean? Well, he actually ends up attending the conference high on meth.
You're kidding.
Nope, it's true. He talks about feeling this internal conflict, this pull towards faith and a desire for change, even while under the influence. It's both hilarious and incredibly poignant.
It's a perfect example of the complexities of human behavior, the inner turmoil and conflicting desires that often accompany addiction. Even in the midst of his struggles, there's this part of him that's yearning for something more, a glimmer of hope that refuses to be extinguished.
It's like he's caught between two worlds, and this faith conference becomes a sort of crossroads.
Exactly. And it's at this conference that he decides to get baptized, a symbolic act of surrendering to a higher power and embracing a new path. Now, he doesn't experience a sudden miraculous healing in that moment, but something shifts within him. He describes it as a seed being planted, a subtle but profound change taking root.
So even though he doesn't feel an immediate transformation, there's this sense that something significant has happened.
The act of baptism, for many, represents a turning point, a commitment to a new way of life. And while he didn't have a dramatic overnight conversion experience, the fact that he felt drawn to this act of faith suggests a deep yearning for change and a willingness to surrender to something greater than himself.
It's the beginning of a gradual process, a slow and sometimes messy journey towards recovery. He describes going through detox, sleeping for days on end, and slowly regaining his strength and clarity. And then there's this incredible moment of realization. He suddenly realizes he hasn't craved meth in weeks, even though he hasn't been consciously trying to quit. The desire for the drug has simply vanished.
That's a fascinating observation, and it speaks to the mysterious and often unexpected ways in which faith and spirituality can influence recovery. It wasn't a sudden miraculous healing, but a gradual process of inner transformation. The fact that the cravings simply disappeared suggests a profound shift in his brain chemistry, his reward system, and his overall sense of self.
It's like a switch flipped and he was free.
In a sense, yes. And this newfound freedom allows him to embrace his faith wholeheartedly, dedicate himself to helping others, and experience a level of joy and fulfillment he never thought possible.
It's like his whole life has been flipped upside down, but in the best possible way. He reconnects with his family, builds a successful upholstery business, and his relationship with his son is restored. It's a testament to the ripple effects of transformation, how it not only impacts the individual, but also extends outward to touch the lives of those around them.
It's a beautiful illustration of how healing and redemption can create a ripple effect, spreading outward to mend broken relationships and restore a sense of wholeness. It really is remarkable to see how all these seemingly disparate pieces of his life, his corporate experience, his time in prison, his newfound faith, ultimately come together to create this tapestry of resilience and transformation. It's a powerful testament to the human capacity for growth and change, even in the face of incredible adversity.
It makes you wonder what would have happened if he hadn't gone to prison. Would he have continued down a destructive path? Or would he have found a different catalyst for change?
That's an interesting question, and it's impossible to know for sure. But what his story highlights is that sometimes hitting rock bottom can be the catalyst for profound transformation. It can force us to confront our demons, reassess our priorities, and ultimately choose a different path.
It's like the old saying, sometimes you have to lose yourself to find yourself.
Exactly. And in his case, prison became the unlikely crucible where he shed his old self, embraced new possibilities, and ultimately discovered a deeper sense of purpose.
And it's not just about his personal transformation. His story also speaks to the power of second chances and the importance of supporting those who are re-entering society after incarceration. He could have easily fallen back into old patterns, succumbed to the stigma, and become another statistic. But instead, he chose to fight for a better life, not just for himself, but for his son.
It's a reminder that everyone deserves a chance at redemption, and that with the right support and opportunities, people can overcome their past and make meaningful contributions to society.
Now let's talk about the role of faith in his recovery. We've already touched on his experience with the divine intervention that led him to the house at his baptism at the Faith Conference. But I'm curious to explore this further. How did his newfound faith impact his journey?
Well, for many people in recovery, faith becomes a source of strength, hope, and guidance. It provides a framework for understanding their struggles, a community of support, and a belief in something greater than themselves.
And in his case, he specifically mentions finding solace in watching faith-based content on YouTube. What do you make of that?
It's actually quite common for people to find comfort and inspiration in online communities, especially those centered around shared beliefs or experiences. YouTube in particular has become a hub for recovery content, with countless channels dedicated to sharing personal stories, offering advice, and fostering a sense of connection among viewers.
It's like a virtual support group, accessible 24/7. And in a way, it makes sense. When you're struggling with addiction, you often feel isolated, ashamed, and afraid to reach out for help. But online, you can find anonymity, a sense of belonging, and the reassurance that you're not alone.
Exactly. And for someone like him who chose to isolate himself during early recovery, online communities can provide a lifeline, a way to connect with others who understand what he's going through without fear of judgment.
And let's not forget the power of storytelling. Hearing other people's recovery journeys can be incredibly inspiring and motivating. It can give you hope that change is possible, even when you're feeling lost and hopeless.
Absolutely. Storytelling has always been a powerful tool for healing and transformation. When we share our stories, we not only process our own experiences, but also offer a beacon of light to others who might be walking a similar path.
Now I want to go back to his upholstery business for a moment. It's fascinating to me how this skill he learned in prison in the midst of such darkness becomes this unexpected source of income and fulfillment. What does that tell us about the potential of rehabilitation and the importance of providing opportunities for people to develop new skills?
It's a perfect example of how investing in rehabilitation programs can not only benefit individuals, but also society as a whole. When people in prison are given the chance to learn new skills and trades, they're more likely to find employment upon release, reducing recidivism rates and contributing to the economy.
It's like planting seeds of hope and opportunity in a place where they're often scarce. And in his case, those seeds blossomed into a thriving business that not only provides for his family, but also allows him to give back to his community by hiring other ex-offenders.
It's a beautiful example of how one person's transformation can have a ripple effect, inspiring others to break free from the cycle of addiction and incarceration and create a better future for themselves and their families.
His story really challenges the notion that people are defined by their past mistakes. It shows that with the right support, a willingness to change, and a bit of faith, even the most broken lives can be mended and transformed.
Absolutely. And it speaks to the importance of second chances, of believing in people's potential even when they might not believe in themselves. It's a reminder that we all have the capacity for growth and change no matter where we come from or what we've been through.
So as we delve into the final chapter of his story, I want to ask you, what do you think is the most significant lesson we can learn from his journey?
Well, for me, it's the power of resilience. This man faced incredible adversity, addiction, incarceration, the loss of his son, financial struggles, yet he never gave up on himself or his dream of a better life. He stumbled and fell, but he always got back up, stronger and more determined than before.
It's like he had this inner fire that kept burning even when everything around him seemed to be crumbling.
Exactly. And that fire was fueled by his faith, his love for his son, and his belief that he was worthy of redemption. He refused to be defined by his past mistakes, and instead chose to focus on creating a future filled with purpose and meaning.
And that's a message that resonates deeply with me. Life is full of challenges and setbacks, but it's our ability to bounce back, to learn from our mistakes, and to keep moving forward that ultimately defines us.
I couldn't agree more. His story is a testament to the indomitable spirit that resides within us, all the power to overcome adversity and emerge stronger, wiser, and more compassionate on the other side.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's always hope, always a glimmer of light waiting to be discovered. And sometimes those glimmers appear in the most unexpected places, like a sewing machine in a prison cell, a faith-based YouTube channel, or a seemingly random house purchase that turns out to be a divine intervention.
It's a reminder that life is full of surprises, and that even when things seem hopeless, there's always the possibility of a plot twist, a sudden shift in direction that can lead us to a brighter future.
It's amazing to think about how much his life changed, and the ripple effects it had on his family and community. But transformation isn't just about grand gestures or overnight miracles.
You're absolutely right. It's often about those small daily choices. The decision to stay sober one day at a time, to show up for your family, to use your skills to make a positive impact.
It's about consistency, commitment, and a belief in the power of those seemingly insignificant actions to create lasting change.
And let's not forget the importance of forgiveness, both of ourselves and others. This man had to forgive himself for his past mistakes and forgive those who might have doubted him or hurt him along the way.
Forgiveness is often seen as a sign of weakness, but it's actually an act of incredible strength and courage.
It takes a lot of courage to let go of anger, resentment, and the need to hold on to the past, and it's often through forgiveness that we truly find peace and freedom.
His story is a testament to that. By forgiving himself and others, he was able to break free from the chains of his past and create a future filled with love, purpose, and joy. And that brings us back to the central question we posed at the beginning of this deep dive. Can faith in second chances truly rewrite a life?
Based on what we've explored today, I think the answer is a resounding yes. But it's not a simple or straightforward process. It's a journey filled with twists and turns, setbacks and triumphs, moments of despair and moments of grace.
It's about embracing the messiness of the journey, trusting that even in the midst of chaos and uncertainty, there's a force guiding us toward our highest potential.
And sometimes that force appears in the form of a divine intervention, a chance encounter, a newfound passion, or simply the unwavering belief of someone who sees our worth even when we don't see it ourselves.
So to our listeners, as you reflect on this incredible story, I want to leave you with this. What seemingly random events in your own life might be connected in ways you haven't yet realized?
Perhaps there's a pattern, a purpose waiting to be discovered.
Keep your eyes open, your heart receptive, and trust that even the most unexpected twists and turns can lead to something extraordinary. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into a life transformed. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share it with your friends. And be sure to hit that bell icon so you never miss a new episode of The Holy Discussion. Until next time, keep seeking, keep growing, and keep believing in the power of transformation.